Good morning. Appreciate Bernard's confidence. It's greater than my own. So I'm obviously not the normal speaker, so you're stuck with me. So at work, I sometimes write what might be kindly called a blog and send that out. It's the random thoughts that I have in my commute on my way to work when I'm not listening to talk radio, which probably should do less of. My blood pressure would probably be better. So start this morning with a couple of scriptures. We're first from Psalm 119, verses 97 to 104. Oh, how I love your law. It is my meditation all the day. Your commandment makes me wiser than my enemies, for it is ever with me. I have more understanding than all my teachers, for your testimonies are my meditation. I understand more than the aged, for I keep your precepts. I hold back my feet from your evil way in order to keep your word. I do not turn aside from your rules, for you have taught me. How sweet are your words to my taste, sweeter than honey to my mouth. Though our precepts, through your precepts, I get understanding. Therefore, I hate every false way. And from the book of John 17:3, and this is eternal life, that they know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. So, for work, there's sometimes weird things that pop into my head, and this past week, the three words that have kind of been bouncing around are coach, teacher, and judge. We've probably played all of those roles at some time in our life with those that we've come in contact with. Some may have more positive connotations than others. So I'll start off with coach. And for a Bible lesson, it's hard because coach is not found in the Bible if you do a quick search. But a coach is, in my view, a teacher. But the relationship between a coach and a student or pupil is a little bit different. Coaches generally, this is world according to Shawn, gain their knowledge through life experience. It's not generally something that they've gained through formal education, unlike teachers. And when I think about the bond that a student creates with a coach, it is based on seeing their performance, the performance of those that are around them, and they say, I want to be like them or be like that. So it starts out with a trust that I'm going to be able to gain that capability or that capacity, whether it's knowledge or physicality. And I know oftentimes when I think of coach, I think of physical fitness, and then I'm still a little down because of Ohio State yesterday, but I'll recover. Hopefully they will too. But that bond of trust is critical in any of these relationships as we go forward when we think about coaching or being a teacher. Because without that, the words that we share are sometimes lost, because human nature is such that we'll push back and to be defensive if it's anything to challenge how we're performing. Coaches can be known to be quite passionate about how they share their information. I think all of us have probably can picture Bobby Knight, maybe, if you're of an age like me, chucking chairs out onto the court. We've seen those impassioned halftime speeches that are sometimes out there. So generally, a coach really takes a fire or an energy that you have within you and helps to channel it and direct it. And hopefully, you have a coach that has that same kind of energy and drive. When I think about teachers, teacher is a phrase or word often seen in the Bible, and we see that reference to each member of the Holy Trinity at various times in the Bible. And one I picked out was just Job 36:22. Behold, God is exalted in his power. Who is a teacher like him? And where the coach takes that fire within you and challenges it, I think of a good teacher, somebody that exposes you to something that maybe you weren't aware of, and then lights that fire for you. It's not something you knew you had the passion about, knew you had a desire or an interest in, but because of that exposure, you develop an interest and a goal to say, I'm going to learn that knowledge. Oftentimes in my life, the teachers have been thrust upon me. I haven't gone seeking them out, but as I've grown older, sometimes I have gone out and sought people out for their teaching capability. When I look at Matthew 5:17 through 20, we see Jesus as the teacher early on in his ministry in Sermon on the Mount. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth passed away, not an iota, not a dot will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever relaxes one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. In just a few short verses, Jesus is able to communicate to these masses the need to be knowledgeable of the scriptures and of the commandments and to apply them. And if they just teach the least of those things, for my children in the audience, obey your parents. If you learn one, maybe that's the one. But he's able to convey that in a way that is attainable for these folks. And when they looked at it, they said, if we read later in the same, in Matthew 7:28 and 29, and when Jesus finished these sayings, the crowds were astonished at his teaching, for he's teaching them as one who had authority and not as their scribes. He was able to bring that knowledge to a place that they said, it's attainable for me. That's happened probably, hopefully for all of us at some point in time. You've had a teacher that's able to take something that seemed completely foreign to you. Nobody's been able to do that with language for me yet, but like calculus was a foreign thing for me, and they were able to get it across to my feeble mind. So got my stage partially set. Where are you going with this? So we've got teachers and coaches. At work, oftentimes we play those roles when we're talking to people about the tasks that they're executing or not. How do you do it? What is the expectation? Sometimes it's a coach where I'm trying to light that passion within you and guide it, or like a teacher where I'm trying to light that passion within you and guide it in a certain way. Sometimes it's as a coach where I'm trying to channel it in a positive manner. Oftentimes when we're playing those role of teacher or coach, the message we're delivering is challenging. And a lot of us will shirk away from that responsibility because we don't like conflict. That's why many of us haven't made it in, professional wrestling, where that's just all about conflict. So why is that a problem? Why do we shirk from that? In my research, which is research done by others, you wouldn't want me doing these things, they say there's a small part of your brain called the amygdala, which is constantly looking for threats in your environment. It's been this way since the dawn of time for man. The problem is we don't differentiate between a tiger trying to attack us or a frown on our significant other's face that says, oh, I'm disappointed in what you've done. We treat both of those equally harmful to us. And in some cases, they might both be equally harmful. Some of us might choose the tiger in some of those situations. So how do we get by that? We look at human nature. Once we have that knowledge, we can recognize that this is something that I can work through and get by. My wife's frown, which unfortunately, a different story, at lunch a few weeks ago when we were up in Ohio, I got the frowny face. That was that classic disappointment. We can work through that. We can understand it. But the big part is to commit to having that dialogue. Oftentimes we fall into a couple of, I'll call them the 4 Fs: freeze, fight, flight, or faint. Hopefully nobody faints today. But in conversation, it becomes silence or violence. We either become very defensive and, much like many coaches, impassioned in our defense of our performance, or we get silent and just stew or simmer on it. The goal is to have that conversation. So the last kind of note that I had in here is about the judge. And when we think about our Christian walks and the things that we're supposed to do, we all recognize and understand that at some point there is a judgment. The judgment by our fellow brothers and sisters when they're trying to help us improve. First, we need to recognize that much like coaches and teachers, oftentimes people that are providing feedback, even judges, they're trying to help us improve. The goal is the same, is to aim to help, to assist us. And if we take that and stay curious as we receive that feedback, our opportunities abound to accept it and find out where it is. Even if the feedback is not delivered in a very positive way, and it's to push you down and not elevate you, you can still take that information and say, okay, is there some truth to this? Is there something that I need to do that's different in my walk? So armed with the knowledge, we can overcome this risk. Was listening to a video yesterday. This is a short notice speaking engagement. And he talked about belief, and where is belief in the biblical sense when it's translated into English. It has a couple of components. One is trust, one's obedience, and the third is joy. So we see in teachers, they're able to develop trust and obedience in us because we have a desire to be like them or a desire to learn what they're trying to teach us. But the joy piece, that's a lot of times on ourselves to look at it and say, this is something that I'm going to do. So all of that to get to what is our challenge today as Christians? It is to become those teachers and coaches, first and foremost for ourselves. And we just had communion where we have that opportunity to reflect on our performance this past week. And the standard that we're supposed to hold ourselves to is the standard that's laid out in the Scripture, not the standard that, hey, I had a good week or a bad week from a comparison to my fellow man or what I've seen on TV. It is look at the standard of the Scriptures, and if I don't know them well enough to assess my performance, then that should be the first indicator, judging myself, that my performance needs to improve at least there. So there are small things that we can do if we see that falling into play, much like when we read the Sermon on the Mount. Learn what the commandments are. Learn what the expectations are. Pray and meditate. Learn to be like God, or learn God's will for us. It's written all through the Scriptures. There's a lot of stories that are challenging for us, and there's a lot of stories that many of us carry with us for the rest of our lives. So it can be quite daunting, but it is something that is achievable for us, mainly because as we study and read the Scriptures, we know that Jesus as the advocate is there for us on our behalf. And if we put forth the effort, that judgment will be stern, but the opportunity to join him in heaven is there for us. So I didn't start Tyler's timer. I have no idea how long all that took. I'm usually known for, I'm better at interaction than just speaking. So in the Churches of Christ, we have the opportunity each week to have the invitation. And the invitation is twofold. First and foremost, if you're dealing with or struggling with a personal issue and you would like to come forward and have the prayers of the church on your behalf, please do so. If you've been studying and have come to that point in your life where you've said, I need to put on the blood of Christ through the water grave of baptism, that opportunity is afforded to you now as well. So if you would, please join me as we stand and sing and think about being better coaches and teachers as we go forward. Thank you.